House and Senate GOP leaders returning to Capitol Hill this week to work on the Republicans' party-line immigration enforcement bill after missing President Trump's June 1st deadline. The legislation remains stalled over the president's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund, which was temporarily blocked by a federal judge. Senate Republicans expected the administration to propose changes to the program. Another reported option would remove all Justice Department funding from the bill. Joining me now is Florida Congresswoman Cammack. And Congresswoman, good morning to you. Senate Republicans are prepared to begin this vote-a-rama as early as Wednesday. What are your expectations?
Well, good morning to you, too. Happy Monday. And as far as the Senate goes this cycle, my expectations are pretty low. Given a Republican majority in both the House and the Senate, we really haven't utilized it as best as we could. Now, that can absolutely turn around. We could see a massive change of heart in the Senate. We have over 400 bills from the House just sitting on the doorstep of the Senate. There's a lot that they need to pick up. So I am cautiously optimistic, but we'll see what they can come up with and how they can manage to pull together enough folks to get on the same page, particularly as it relates to this reconciliation effort.
Well, it's interesting. Your colleague in Florida, Representative Byron Donalds, told The Hill, basically, I want the American people to understand what really holds up this town. What holds up this town more and more is lazy senators.
No, he's 100% right. When they get the smell of jet fumes in their nose, man, they can't get out of town fast enough. And that's really disappointing because we have a unique moment in time where we can really focus on the issues that the American people voted for us to take care of. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for us to get our country back on track. And I feel that the Senate has not taken this seriously. So whether it is the Save America Act or Reconciliation 2.0 and 3.0, I feel like they haven't really been motivated to get their sleeves rolled up and heads down and pushing forward on this agenda.
Well, Representative Jason Smith was here, and he told Maria last week he thinks, that passing 2 reconciliation bills is going to be difficult by the midterms. What do you say?
Absolutely. There's no doubt that Reconciliation 3.0 is becoming further and further away because we see the challenges that we're facing in a quote unquote simple, well, not simple, but simpler 2.0 version. Let us not forget that in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut that we did last year, that was a 37-hour markup that I was a part of. And I know how very difficult these bills can be. But what we're talking about is actually getting this job done. Like I said, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. We can't afford to miss it.
Liz Peek's on set with me. It's got a question for you. Go ahead.
Good morning. I think everyone is frustrated by the Senate's inability to move, as you say, 400 bills forward, including a lot of things that are very popular with Republican voters, like requiring voter ID. So is this just the Senate's filibuster problem, or is there a pretty strong anti-Trump strain in the Senate? And how do we get around this? Are you in favor of lifting the filibuster for the next, number of bills that go through, or what's your view on how to unblock this logjam?
There's a couple things here. So as someone who really believes in the Republic and our institution, I've always been a little bit hesitant to just say, hey, we should blow up the filibuster. But it's becoming increasingly clear day by day that they are using the filibuster as a means not to do the work. And that means that we're going to have to make some changes. So whether we institute a talking filibuster, which eliminates effectively the zombie filibuster, the difference being a talking filibuster means if you want to stop something, you want to block it, you dang well better be in the room and you better be physically present and debating, right? Versus the zombie filibuster, which is you could be in Hawaii and say, I'm not going to vote for that, and it holds everything up. Senators shouldn't have that much power individually.
That's a good point.
Amen.
It's a very good point, Congresswoman. So Senate Democrats are launching a campaign to eliminate the Anti-Weaponization Fund. In a Dear Colleague letter that they wrote this morning, actually, Senate Minority Leader Schumer said that Democrats are going to use a range of tools, including floor action and oversight, to block it. Here's how former Vice President Mike Pence feels about the fund. Watch.
I think that the weaponization fund is a bad idea from the start, and I would encourage the administration just to drop it. But let's get rid of this fund. I mean, it's deeply offensive to me that you could have a fund that could even possibly compensate people who assaulted police officers or vandalized the Capitol on January 6th. And I think that's broadly held by most Republicans and most Americans.
Congresswoman, your reaction to that?
Well, as someone who served on the weaponization committee last Congress, I can tell you that the issue is very real and it is rampant. But I'm not sure that a $1 billion-plus slush fund is the answer. I think if you really want to eliminate the weaponization that takes place within the federal government against American citizens and those that serve, you need to actually address the root cause. This is the problem that we have in Washington. It's the idea of throwing money at a problem and hoping it goes away. I think that money could be better spent in bringing down the cost of everything and making life more affordable for Americans while simultaneously addressing the system that allowed for the weaponization against individuals here in this country. And certainly I will say, as the wife of a first responder, absolutely under no circumstances would I ever support any payouts for anyone who ever assaulted law enforcement.
All right. Well, let's stay with Florida, because Florida gaining $20.6 billion in adjusted gross income from people who've moved to the state between 2022 and 2023. IRS data shows California lost over $11 billion in net income, largest loss of any state. New York losing more than $9 billion. Maria spoke with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Sunday about the impact of migration to your state. Listen.
When you see these billionaires saying, bye-bye Florida, bye-bye New York, bye-bye California with your billionaires tax, I'm setting up a second headquarters in Florida. What has that meant for the state?
In the last 9 months, the amount of wealth we've seen move from California simply because of the threat of this wealth tax has been unprecedented, certainly in Florida's history, but I would say probably in American history if you look at the type of people who have done it, and it's for good reason. They want to tax 5% of wealth. They claim it's just for billionaires, but you know these taxes will apply to people who are less than that. But even if it's just the high people, they're taxing your voting rights in a company. You may not even own the equity, and they're going to impute value to that. Then you're going to have to just write them a check, and then what are they going to do with that money? They're going to give it to public employee unions who run the state of California. So you can understand why people wouldn't want to be subjected to that.
Same governor that called Zora Mondami the Florida Realtor of the Year. Congresswoman, your reaction?
Well, I got to tell you, my governor was spot on right there. It's really interesting because socialism has a huge problem in the United States. It's called Florida. And when people are looking around and saying, you're going to tax me from start to finish and everywhere in between, whereas if I go to Florida, I have the opportunity to raise a family, to make decisions that are best for me, my business, my family. I'm not going to have a massive government overlording. That's pretty attractive. And I will say, candidly, the most accurate pollsters in America today, they're moving trucks. And we see that in Florida. Over 1,000 people a day are moving to the Sunshine State. And so you would think that places like New York and California would get a hint and say, whoa, we have this mass exodus. Instead, they're saying, we're going to tax you on your way out. I tell you, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And man, they are getting one heck of a prize right now.
Oh, yes, they are. Real quick before you go, I've only got a few seconds, but House Speaker Johnson and House Minority Leader Jeffries have tapped you to lead the fight against workplace sexual misconduct in Congress. Tell us what this is.
Well, it's clear that we have a bipartisan problem, right? So you see what happened with Swalwell and Representative Gonzalez, both creeps who needed not to be serving, but it doesn't end there. We can't have accountability begin and end with expulsions. We've got to stop the behavior before it even begins. So this is an effort that both Republicans and Democrats have undertaken. I'm proud to lead this as the chair of the Republican Women's Caucus, along with my counterpart, Teresa Leger-Fernandez. And what we're looking to do is stop the retaliation culture, make sure that victims have a one-stop shop and know who to call, what to do if they find themselves as a victim of this type of behavior. And we need to actually address the fact that you've got a spectrum of generations, and many of these folks with the power balance dynamic that is just out of whack in Washington, they know what is appropriate and what's not.
Congresswoman Cammack, we're going to be watching your work on that. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be right back, everybody.